Welcome to the Be Meaningful podcast, an unrehearsed, unscripted conversation about a real brand in real time, with Brian and Bogey, the founders of Meaningful, an agency that helps brands find a meaningful place in the world. Today, Brian and Bogey spend time with Bernadette Farag, President and Chief Marketing Officer of Osmo Shawarma, a Canadian fast food chain with nearly 200 locations and counting. They discuss Middle Eastern food, hospitality, and how a restaurant brand becomes more than its menu.
I think for us it's fun because this is the first time we're meeting each other, right? So we've never met, we've never talked before. This is it, and so that's kind of the magic of it all. So appreciate you taking
you're
a risk.
Successful. Wow,
Extremely, yeah.
Apparently.
Your company, man. We were reading up on it, and we're like, the what? Like, why don't I know who these guys are? So you're coming into this country, right?
Yeah.
Franchising?
Why don't you know who we are? Where are you?
I'm in San Francisco.
I'm in New York.
Okay. We're not there yet.
But I was born in Rochester, so I'm across the lake. I'm not far from you guys.
Very nice.
But
how about you, Bobby?
New York. I'm in New York, but originally I'm Ukrainian, so that's why I have the funky name.
Nice.
You can start franchising there when things settle down.
Lots of shawarma in New York right now. We've 5 in the U.S. so far, so we're coming to you. That's for sure.
Cool. That's
there
great.
You go.
That's great. That's great. So we loved. I mean, what an origin story, right? Sam coming in. I mean, that is like. I know it's Canada, but that is what Americans want to believe is America, right? That you come over here, start with the shirt on your back, maybe some change in your pocket, and look what he has built, right? And I think what's cool, you can't make this stuff up, like the origin story where a customer came into the store and goes, What are you cooking? What is that smell? That smells so good. And next thing you know, you've got 170 franchises or something. It's like, holy smokes.
184.
Yeah. Who's counting? I mean, beautiful. That's so cool. Yeah. So what is Sam? I know this is about the brand, but what is Sam doing now? I'm sure he's still involved, right?
Actually, right now he is in Zambia. We started a charity in 2020 where we feed children in their places of learning. So our charity works with local and abroad. So we're concentrating on third world countries where they don't have resources that we do, because coming from Egypt, they obviously know what poverty is like in third world countries. And Zambia was our first initiative. And this year we're actually opening access to clean water wells, as well as new kitchens to feed children there. So he's there for the opening. I was supposed to be there, and we kind of did a trade-off.
Wow.
I went last year. This year he's going, which is great.
That's cool. Yeah. So because I mean, we could talk about this and all sorts of things, but we'll try to focus on the areas that we have, I guess, some permission to talk, which is branding and marketing and stuff like that. So obviously we know your short-term goal is to expand into the United States, right? What's the dream, because Sam has probably largely realized his dream. So now you and your brother, right, are going to take this thing forward. What's the vision? What's the dream?
The dream is to be worldwide, to get our delicious food to be convenient and accessible in everybody's hands, realistically. And I think my personal dream for the company is to have people realize how healthy our food is. Shawarma typically has, I'll say, layers of fat between the rotisserie, and we don't do that in our food whatsoever. And we also don't add oil to our proteins as well, which is a huge deal. People are against canola oil nowadays. So it's more so letting people know that even though it's shawarma, It's not heavy. It's not sitting on your chest. You don't feel it after you eat it because it's actually made in such a healthy way. Sam Osmo, my father, is the most healthy man I've ever met in my entire life.
Well, he's lean. You can see that from the photos, right? He's not carrying a lot of body fat.
You got it. He's a lean man. He looks great. He does well for his age, and he's very healthy. So he kind of replicated that. We're the ones that westernized the food a little bit by adding shawarma poutine in our menu. And it's delicious, by the way. It's my guilty pleasure. Definitely highly recommend. There are some options. We always say we're as healthy as you would need to be and as unhealthy as you would like to be.
Oh, that's like got to be a little motto floating around on a napkin or something, right? So it's kind of a subversive little sentence floating around. That's cool, because one of the very initial reactions or thoughts that we had when we discovered and looked into, we didn't do like heavy research. We just like went to your website, saw an article or two. And immediately what came to mind is the moment Chipotle, which was kind of benefiting from, kind of a Mexican food trend, right, in the 90s. Yeah. They benefited from that wave, but then when they what really got them elevated as a brand is when they did the messaging, which launched with that scarecrow animation with I'm trying to Fiona Apple song, I think, but it was really about they elevated the narrative, and this is essentially what branding is, right? Is creating a story, and the antagonist was processed food, just the industry at large. Exactly. That every other quick serve QSR restaurant was just junk food, and they recast themselves from Mexican to kind of farm to table. Exactly. Kind of, regionally sourced, kind of what Starbucks was doing, where Starbucks would have bakers within their area doing their recipes, so things were fresh, and it was kind of that business model. And I don't think people got into the business of it, but they just embraced that message that this was part of it too, was perception is reality to some degree, and you could see with your eyes things being made in real time right in front of you. Yeah. So that just felt healthier than something that came wrapped from under a heat lamp, You
got it. And we look up to Chipotle greatly, actually, because their model is pretty much aligned with our model. Yeah. We have our own plant. We make our own food. We supply our restaurants. Everything is marinated in-house. We don't do any additives, any GMOs or anything in our proteins. Everything that we supply to our restaurants is supplied fresh and raw, and they cook it in restaurant. Right. So it's something that we are very much aligned with, and all the food is made in front of you as well in restaurant, which is something that we're very proud of as well.
So obviously, anything I think or say is going to be somewhat unavoidably filtered by being, an American Western, right? But like shawarma is one of those words that you don't say with 100% confidence because you think you're mangling it. Like there's something fun that shawarma can potentially be like as familiar as a burger or a hot dog. Mm-hmm. Like if this thing rolls up, right, it would be kind of like shawarma is just an everyday thought and word, which is not that it's common, but it's just so assimilated, so embraced, I think there's
handheld food.
What's that?
I said a handheld food, like you can grab a wrap and go on the road and drive.
So I think already, right, between the name shawarma, which I know isn't the complete menu, but it's kind of your lead, right, item. Yeah. The word, the language, the vocabulary, the ritual, the handheld, these are the things that, if you were looking at Patrick Hanlon, not to give him a plug, but like Primal Branding, he gets into the rituals, that make you part of that culture, and the fact that it's handheld, and that it's a funny word, at least to people who are not from that part of the world, it's, I think, and it's colorful. The language is colorful. The food's colorful. Like how many spices are in I'm just curious. It's probably like
14 spices in our shawarma.
Okay, so you know that. I was going to say 17. I really was. I was going to guess.
That's
You know,
the proteins. That doesn't even include the sauce.
But again, what you're trying to do in your messaging, right? Especially to people who aren't already active users, or consumers, customers, is you want to kind of ignite their imagination, So it's things like 14 spices is kind of like, ooh, now I'm running. Like what would that be? Okay, salt, pepper, right? That's 12 more. But probably curry, probably. And then when you say a spice, I mean, some of the spices like harissa and tandoor and those kind of things, berber, those are like 7-8 spices already, to mix together. So it's this, it's like magical. You want people to have that experience that one customer had in the origin story. The person who walked in and goes, what is that? What is that?
Yeah.
We speak with a lot of like CMOs and like marketing, experts. And so they're all about performance marketing. They're all about clicks and conversions and all that stuff. But branding is something a lot deeper than just clicks, right? And so it really comes down to storytelling and really connecting with your audience, values, beliefs, and then more importantly, in the context, right, of today's world.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so that's kind of what we're talking about. I think it's a lot deeper than just
context
clicks.
Is. I mean, if let's say you're talking to, professionals in urban centers, right? People that are. When I started my career, people still went to lunch, and often you were taken to lunch by a rep or a talent rep or somebody or a media person. Right now. You might not even get lunch unless you forcibly take a break and go grab a sandwich or something. And so in a way, so much in the nature of work has changed between the virtual nature, the mobility, the fact that lunch, like Americans don't even take a break for lunch. Like you go to Europe, they take a break for lunch for sure. That's ingrained in their culture, right? And that's part of the context, especially as you're looking at America and rolling out in America. You have five already. That is looking at how America eats, right? Whether it's, I mean, like even Starbucks, the new guy at Starbucks, I think wants to phase out the drive-through. I don't know if I heard that right, but the drive-through just changed Starbucks completely into a place that like, it's not even fun to go to anymore. And he wants to recreate a place you go to, not just a conduit you drive through to get a coffee, And whether he's able to do that, I don't know. But it's so important to look at like how people live and how they eat and what lunch means, and somehow impacting at that level, the definition of lunch. Like for a lot of people, it's grab and go. It's just sustenance and there's no joy in it, And so as a attribute, could Osmow's be about joy?
Definitely.
I mean, is it an overreach? And it depends on the execution, because all you have to do is resonate with people at those levels, and it makes perfect sense, because I think a lot of people walk around. Part of the power of marketing is part of the power in any communication, and that is that you put into words something that people already know, but it's not cognitive. It's just kind of back there floating around in their limbic system, which is emotional, and branding is emotional, and belief systems are emotional. So we're into that kind of semi-hidden space back there where you have thoughts about things. And then when a brand can speak to that, it's like, whoa, it clicks, And so the idea that actually hold a little bit of joy in your hand is kind of an interesting.
Do you like our slogan? It's "We're making what you're craving."
That's right. Yeah. And you also have like was it a crave club or like
craving club. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, so there's a whole area, right?
It's an old one, but a goodie.
Right. So the whole realm of craving is an area, right? So you're already on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that can be super rich. That can be, more than a line. I mean, that can really be where you build your house,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It was Dad's favorite word back in the day when customers used to walk in. They'd say, Sam, what should I have today? He would always ask them, what are you craving? And so when we were looking to come up with a slogan, I had to use that word in there because it felt like it was.
Do you guys
it was on
say,
brand at the time.
Do you guys say that at the counter? I mean, if every single person there, like every time a customer walked up, you said, what are you craving?
You know what, Brian? I'm going to have to roll that out.
That's policy. That's cool.
We are not saying that right now, I'll be honest, but it is definitely.
Yeah, why not? Right? Yeah.
Well, that's what it means, right? When Brian says to build a house on it, that's like literally. Let's take something like that and like ingrain it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
The store, right? The franchise, the actual place with the counter. You've got now. Once I know, like where Sam, right? Your heritage, where you guys come from. Then the Pharaoh graphic makes sense with the zigzaggy beard and everything.
The zigzag beard is actually a shawarma. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh.
It's the rotisserie. It's kind of hidden in there, but
it makes sense. Okay. All right. So the reason I'm talking about it, I haven't been in it. I haven't been in one, but
yes.
Yet, correct.
Yeah. But how do you feel about that? I mean, it's kind of a leading question because when we first looked at it, we're like, it's bright and it looks like a place you might walk into, and it could be in a mall, it could be in an airport and everything, but it felt kind of derived, like a lot of things I feel like I might walk into. And aside from that graphic, the shawarma Pharaoh, I didn't know if it really was taking full advantage. And I mean, I know it's a huge statement, right? You're not going to re-outfit or change, but I'm just curious, like what, if that is a place that you ended up, or if that's at this point locked in and intentional, the red, the black, the blonde wood. Just curious about that.
So they're actually the Egyptian flag colors, red, white, and black.
Wow. Okay.
But also we got some insights
right?
on making you crave some food. It's more the fuchsias and the reds that make you kind of get your cravings out in a way. So those insights were used in order to utilize in the restaurant. It also stands out in terms of the signage. We actually rebranded from Osmo to Osmo Shawarma back in the day because obviously you don't know what Osmo is when you hear it. It's our last name and it's not something that's well known. And so we had to realize that we needed something in our name that called out to people, that told them what we do.
Right.
And therefore we added shawarma at the bottom. And that's how it all began. But realistically, in 2001, you know the story. Sam was working in his own sub shop and it wasn't doing well. We had Quiznos, Mr. Sub, and Subway open up near us. We made $47 in one day. There was nothing coming in. Our mortgage is almost at a loss. Like, we're not going to make payments on time. And he was literally cooking himself a shawarma in the sub shop. He made it without the rotisserie. He just made it by hand, all the good spices. And a customer walked in and he's like, Sam, what smells so good? So the customer got a bite of his food and he was hooked. And then my dad was like light bulb at that point. It was realization, other cultures too, like exotic Middle Eastern flavors. And that's kind of how overnight he came home, told the family, friends, I'm shutting down, I'm opening up as a Mediterranean cuisine. And everybody and their mother was against the idea, including my mother.
Really?
Yeah, so it was 2001. There was no diversity in food. People didn't know what shawarma was. We literally had to introduce the whole concept to people. Stubborn, determined, he did it, obviously.
So, you know, in the 80s, I remember where I started my career, Chicago at that time, where I lived, was exploding in terms of Thai food and Italian trattorias, and then after that, right? It just, I mean, gosh, it's crazy. So is that a Canadian, like a Toronto thing, that the diversity just wasn't there? Because Toronto's a pretty international city.
Toronto actually has the most diverse food.
Right.
Definitely the most, but I think it started late. So at least in certain towns or areas, downtown Toronto had shawarma, possibly, I would be lying if I told you I know for sure, but possibly before we came downtown. Shawarma was there, but it also wasn't very well known, and I think it was those areas that knew it. Outside of that, in 2001, no, nothing. So we were the ones, I always say Osmo's pioneered what shawarma is today, because genuinely we made a difference. We started franchising it. We were trendsetters in the industry. I mean, not to boast or anything, but it was because of Dad dreaming it and manifesting it. It became a reality.
That's cool. That's cool.
And a lot of hard work, right?
A whole lot of hard work.
Yeah. I can only imagine. I mean,
Kudos
you read about it and you're like...
The two men I have in my life, they literally pioneered in their own ways things to do. So Ben and Sam Osmow, incredible human beings, both with massive brains that just allowed us to go far. And I simply came in and helped what I could. And our team in-house are like family. Everybody contributed in a way. I always say we're all like gears working together. We make sure that we work together in order to get things going. And I'm in awe when I think back. That's for sure.
Cool.
Let me ask you this. Looking ahead, you are looking at, expanding into America, and that's, United States. What keeps you up at night? What are the questions that keep you up at night as the person responsible for, the brand, the marketing, and kind of the operations of the machine?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll say our biggest asset is also our biggest bottleneck, which is our plans. So right now, as I said, we make everything ourselves. We ship it out. So in order for you to expand, you need plans in every area you're in. Yeah. And that's something that also holds you back, right? So I'll say that's the piece, because I don't want to ever go to using preservatives in our proteins. I don't want to resort to that. And so that is the piece that would hurt the most if we ever look to go that way. But we are all doing what we can to ensure that we don't go that route. I don't want it to be a fast food place. I want it to be the place where we feed our kids, where we are okay that other people's kids are coming to eat at our place. It's the healthy option you can eat outside your house. That's my goal, and that's what I dream to keep it as. Whether we open in what country across the seas, it's something that I want to maintain. So that would be it.
That's cool, because it's an ethos that you can be clear about, right? And it can impact you at more than just a corporate level, right? So it's a corporate policy and an ethics code and everything, but I think that idea, like what you would feed your kids, what you make at home for yourself, every cuisine, like America is one of the few places in the world where everybody's cuisine is eaten. Like you go to Italy, it's mostly Italian food, right? No surprise. And yet in America, it's like I could have Chinese, I could have Italian, I could have, Egyptian. And yet, like if I have Indian food, if you have somebody who's from India and they're going to an Indian restaurant here, they're like, that is not how we eat. Like you couldn't eat that every day. You'd explode. It's just, it's so rich and so, and I think that idea, that this is how we make it for ourselves, is something that is eminently believable and says a lot in very simple language. It says a lot about the quality, of the food and the health aspect, because you're not going to eat unhealthy food every day. You wouldn't do that to yourself, Yes.
And when you try it, you'll say you seriously have no oil or butter in there. This tastes delicious.
So exactly. So while you were talking about that earlier, somebody had recommended an Ethiopian restaurant. They go, oh, it's one of my favorite places. And I looked at the menu. Every single thing, every single item used butter. And I'm just kind of like, I mean, because I'm kind of, even though I'm not ethnically Italian, I'm spiritually very Italian how I cook, and it's all olive oil, very little butter, if ever, you know? And so it's kind of like, wow, I don't know, to go into a place and eat something, everything's cooked in butter. Everything's cooked in butter. It's like, yeesh, I don't know. But so that's cool to know. You just don't want that. You want that to be more than a functional benefit or part of a list of claims. Like everything's made fresh, you know, we don't use oils, everything. But because while that can be impressive, it has to add up to a single thing for people, for it to be portable mentally, you know, for people to take it away, you know? Yeah. And so like with Chipotle, they just kind of went against the food industry and said, we're different. So any good branding usually will do that, where it makes the landscape binary. It simplifies it, right? So Apple did the computer for the rest of us. So there was Mac and PC. So they simplified. Volkswagen, cars wanted, or drivers wanted, sorry. Exactly. And so in the world, there's people who drive and people who ride, you know? And so we want drivers wanted, you know? And so I think that kind of thinking about your brand in that sense, you know, if the world, maybe the world is bland, maybe the world is boring, maybe the world needs a kick in the pants, have a shawarma, you know, it's, you know, is it like something that speaks to a broader,
we can talk about like Killer Burger too. Like the stuff that we did for Killer Burger was interesting, right? Where we went through the three things. We personalized the burger, personalized the person. If you want to talk about that, Brian, that's kind of an interesting case study.
Well, it was just finding what made that brand unique is that, so Killer Burger, it was small, but they were, excuse me, they had gotten some investment to create franchises. So they were going to expand it. And they were kind of a small local thing in Portland that people knew and loved, but how you would introduce yourself to a different place was what they were trying to figure out. And one of the things that made them unique was first of all their burgers were idiosyncratic. They did things with like put peanut butter on burgers, and you're like, what? But people love these things. And some people, like, I would not have a burger with peanut butter. I just would not do it. But some people are like, OMG, you've got to eat this, you know. But they were decadent and they were peculiar kind of burgers. And they were good. I mean, the quality was good and they were all made right there. You had to wait for it. And so one of the things we were doing that I think was you know, most insightful was that people didn't just like Killer Burger. They liked a particular Killer Burger. Like that was their Killer Burger. Right. Yeah. That was their go-to burger. And so
Jose Mendez or like
yeah. And so we were kind of matching up personality types and burgers, and kind of the personalities matched, you know, it's like your soulmate kind of thing. And it's reminiscent of way back when Apple came out with PowerBook, you know, their first laptop, and they did what's on your PowerBook, you know, and they would have like, you know, Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, holding a PowerBook portrait, you know, next to a young 20-something producer dressed in black, you know, and they had way different stuff in their PowerBook, you know. So it was kind of that thing, like really personalizing the product to the person, you know, and then also capturing, you know, the culture there, that like, you know, lines like napkins are a joke. Like, just forget the napkins and go with the mess. Just lean into it because it's going to be a mess. Doesn't matter. You know, things like that. And I think there's truths about the culture. That's what we were talking about, handheld and the 14 flavors and, you know, is it joy in a hand? You know, what is it? And trying to really capture in a very colloquial way that connects with people what it is. Because it has to elevate above like, you know, 1 + 1 is 2. You know, because that's logic. But branding is emotional.
Let me one more question before we wrap up. Any marketing related question, any branding related question for us that you are, looking at a couple guys who've been in the industry for what, 30 plus years.
Well, speaking for me, yeah.
Been in all his life and then some.
Yeah.
All right, that's a great question. So how about the messaging gets lost when you're trying to say no oil, no butter, no protein.
Yeah.
Would you position it in a way where it doesn't get lost?
Very good question. That's a very good question.
I benefit here, smart girl.
This
right?
is good.
Yeah. Well, I think when a marketer has something that they want to say or tell or share,
I do have a caveat to that. A lot of people douse their shawarma with our sauce. They put a ton of sauce, and that definitely does not follow suit with regards to the healthy.
But to your point, what's presented to them is quite healthy. And so I think marketers usually have these things they want to say, and it becomes kind of an idea that, we need to say, this is where the laundry list of the shopping cart happens, and it becomes problematic because it's like, we want to say this, we want to say that. And that's why strategies are like 2.5 pages, because there's all these proof points and reasons to believe, or whatever you want to call them, unique selling propositions or whatever. And what happens is there is a time and a place in the multi-leveled, multifaceted experience of life that people have, and there's a right time and a place for everything, and it may be somewhere on the website, it may be somewhere in the restaurant itself, it may be on a napkin. Some brands have done an amazing job putting messaging on their packaging. Mm-hmm. It's like the old cereal box. Like there was a day where somebody would have a bowl of cereal at home in the kitchen and read the cereal box. Mm-hmm. It was just a thing. I don't know if anybody does that anymore. But, albums. You used to look for 45 minutes to an hour and a half and read an album cover and all the stories. And so while you're listening to the music, now it's on your phone. You don't listen to it.
Not so much where would you put the messaging, more so how would you position it?
Well, it starts with where. It starts with where, and it starts with when.
I believe in multiple touch points as much as possible. I feel like it helps you embed that message in, but it's more so how would you, and does it work when people are putting so much sauce on their product?
Well, go ahead.
I'll just say one thing. I think it comes down to, features versus value, right? If you're going to try to list all these features, you fall in that camp, and you're as opposed to kind of like what Mac did was really, it's kind of selling the whole value proposition and it's connecting with the identity, right? So that's one way, but Brian, you're probably gonna have a way more eloquent answer.
Well, no, only because this is part of the fun and the folly of doing a podcast like this, is that we're not really, we're doing this in real time, and the minute I hear the words come out of my mouth, I could regret it. But what as I'm processing your question, all these cool things about your brand, right? The health, the flavor, the happiness, the ease, your name, what it means in Egyptian, right? I come to this idea of hospitality, the fact that somebody could walk in and Sam would give him a bite of his own lunch, or make that for him, or you make it for everyone who walks in today. And that there's a meaning to the name that's over the door. And I think hospitality is, America is so impoverished compared to other cultures on the art or the posture of hospitality. Like, I can go into other places in the world, certainly in the Middle East, and they will make a place at their table. They will sit down, stop what they're doing, right? It's almost spiritual, to them, right? Part of their faith system is to be hospitable. And I think that would be ambitious, but a really cool space to carve out. Mm-hmm. You know, hospitality, true hospitality, not the word like hospitality. I'm sorry, hospitality like the Marriott, you know, but true hospitality. Hospitality you only experience at someone's home. Like if that could be replicated or in essence experienced, that would be cool.
Might incorporate you in some of our think tanks moving forward.
Sure. Well, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because I'm Christian, and I came to faith midlife, and the Western Church is horrible at sharing their faith with people because they don't understand the door to get into conversation with somebody else about faith is hospitality. It's not social media, for sure. You know? So, yeah. And I mean, I don't know Sam, but I'm imagining who he is. I'm kind of creating a person based on the pieces of the story that I've read or you're telling me. And I believe a shawarma can embody. It can be a personification of him. And I think that's true to that culture, I think, right? Yeah. And so really capturing that and making sure that that's somehow people catch that. Right. And so a lot of times, and I said the word catch intentionally because a lot of times the understanding, the grasp of something is caught, not taught. You know, that's kind of a little church, you know, slogan. It's caught, not taught. You experience it, right? Like we had a one of our earlier podcasts was with a guy who created a game and a kind of a community around empathy, especially during Zoom. Like you could do it on Zoom and kind of have people gather around the screen and do this card game that would cultivate empathy. And one of the things we were trying to tell him is, and I think it threw him for a loop, but empathy is not the entrance, the front door, it's the takeaway. Because you can talk about empathy, but you can't will it to happen. Empathy is something you experience, right? So you might have a whole bunch of ideas about people and places, and then when you meet somebody who's that kind of person, whatever that is, right? From that place, but it's personal, everything changes. All those presumptions and presuppositions and ideas and dogma that you have, all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, this is just like a person like me. This is, they're laughing and I'm laughing. We're not that different, right? But you can't do that. So the point we were trying to get him to think of that duality, right? Of excitement and fear. Like, I don't want someone to really know me, but it's exciting. Like it's like a roller coaster ride. Like I want to go on it, but I'm scared at the same time. So I'm drawn and I'm hesitant, drawn and hesitant. Tap into that, the excitement of that, and realize that empathy is going to be the takeaway. As opposed to, because it's, again, he was trying to appeal to people in the front of their mind, which is like, hey, cultivate empathy with your friends. It's like, well, that sounds like a boring party. That sounds like the party in the dorm where, you know, they do the hairy buffalo and none of the girls show up. You're like, well, this is boring.
You're really good at bringing the other angle of how to look at something. Yeah. And new perspectives. And I admire that. That's amazing.
Well, cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. This is really great.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, I am very hungry.
Yeah.